Friday. Hello. Let's start in the United States of America with this. It's Ceridian, UCLA Pulse of Commerce Index. I think it's quite good because it's based on sales of diesel. And I think that is a good shape. That represents, I think, what has gone on in the United States. The recovery from the tech crash, 9/11, and then up through the housing boom, and then the crash down from early '08, and the recovery, but not nearly a recovery that's going anywhere or representing where things were going in the old days. I think that's about right, and with the noted little turn down at the end as well. About right, I reckon. Bloomberg, decline in US household income raises stakes for 2012 presidential race. UK household income fell to its lowest level in more than a decade in 2010, and poverty rose to a 17-year high, setting the stage for the debate over jobs and the economy that will dominate the 2012 presidential race. Will it, or will they choose something totally irrelevant to talk about? Both, probably. Medium household income declined 2.3%, and the proportion of people living in poverty last year climbed to 15.1%, or almost 1 in 6 Americans, from 14.3% in 2009. That's the US Census Bureau reported. Of course, I think that could be the right-wing, left-wing thing, isn't it, really? Because the right-wing types, that's Republicans, isn't it, would say, well, that's what's poverty really when you've got a DVD and a mobile phone and all that sort of thing. And they come at the argument from that sort of angle and other sorts of angles like that. Valid, but it's all very tricky, this political stuff. I try and keep out of it. Bloomberg, this is a second article, but very similar. Pessimism rises as 72% see US on the wrong course. Americans' pessimism about the economy has deepened, and confidence in both political parties has fallen, with only 20% saying the country is on the right course, even as they remain divided over solutions. They deeply and absolutely know something is wrong, but don't know who to turn to try and cure it. I suspect if it gets bad enough, they will go for the mummy or daddy role. Daddy role being the Republicans and the mummy role being the Democrats. Which one will they want? Do they want cuddling or telling what to do? Just 9% of people say they are confident the economy won't slide back into recession, a Bloomberg national poll. A majority says it will take at least 6 more years for home values in their community to recover to pre-recession levels. They'll be bloody lucky. I've been struggling with the US budget, because everyone seems to come up with a different number about how it's going at the moment. So I went to Treasury Direct, and these figures are available down in the bottom right there. You can see the date, the starting date there is 9/12/2001. And basically they have on the far right the total public debt outstanding every single day that they're open for business, and they add a little. You can see it started, that 5776 is 5,776 billion diddly dot. So that line of figures obviously goes down. So what I did, I went down to the bottom, so I'll show you the spreadsheet. I went down to the bottom and got today's latest figure, which is that middle one at the bottom, the 14,688 14,668 billion, that sort of number, and then went back a year, and then back a year, and then back a year, and then back a year. So it's the kind of the that's the fiscal year is the mystic fiscal year that it is from the Ides of September, and basically took one from the other. That's the figures on the right. And as you can see, if we start at the top, 2006 to 2007, before the fuss started, just under 500 billion. And then it went to 677 billion, but obviously then the shit hit the fan, and then the deficit, the Ides of September deficit, went to over 2 trillion. And subsequently it's come down to 1.6 trillion and 1.2 trillion. And I'll just throw in here, not saying it should be or it shouldn't be, but that is not enough. Back of an envelope calculation by Mystic, me, Nick, which didn't involve any envelope or any calculation, just feeling it and guessing, but I am a mystic, so I can do these sort of things. 1.2 is not enough, not to get the private sector deleveraging done. I would guesstimate that a break-even point would be about 1.5 trillion, just to keep the economy above zero with the private sector deleveraging as it is. 1.2 will not be enough. So Obama will need the extra package put on top of that, and no more of that taken off, to keep the US out of recession, is my guesstimate. 2 trillion would probably be minimum for keeping the economy ticking over and the private sector deleveraging, and that would have to go on for at least 5 years, maybe even 10. Over in the UK household budgets face a 10-year squeeze. We see ideas, they come from nowhere, but they don't come from nowhere, because I knew this was coming, and it's probably in my head, and I've thought about the United States based on this, and because nobody knows, do they? Everyone's making it up, so you can project figures forward, but things always happen to get in the way of your projections. Events always happen. Anyway, if things go as they are, the IFS say household budgets could be squeezed for the next 10 years as the impact of tax rises and cuts is felt. Its survey suggests families have seen the biggest fall in living standards in 30 years in the last financial year. This is the UK. It warned that those on lowest income were likely to suffer a further significant reduction in their spending power. So that's going to make life not easy, and the debate about whether you're in poverty or not will raise its ugly head again. If you've got a mobile phone, can you possibly be in poverty? It's very tricky, I wouldn't like to say. Over to Europe and finish with a Euro finish. So everyone's dismissed that don't care about Europe. Goodbye and see you next week. From Alphaville, Eurozone crisis porn. Yeah. For those who get a vicarious thrill from watching the Eurozone's sovereign debt crisis and imagining how it might end, like you, will seriously enjoy Wednesday's scribblings from David Zervos, the head of global fixed income strategy at Jefferies and former Fed official. He believes a Lehman-like event is about to be unleashed on Europe that will trigger country-by-country socialization of the commercial banks and a splintering of the Eurozone. Realistic or not, it's certainly a gripping read. You can follow the link. And I particularly drew this out because I've been kind of saying this, that I think that's what we will get. A Lehman-like event will be unleashed, which probably will be the Greek default, will trigger a country-by-country socialization of the commercial banks. In other words, all the countries will have to nationalize to a certain extent their parts of their banking sector, and it will splinter the Eurozone. And this actually goes back to what happened in the beginning of this crisis, that when it was necessary, that when the subprime made the banks go wobbly and the countries had to come in behind their banking system, Merkel in Germany said, yes, this is what we must do, but we will do it individually. Individual countries in Europe will come in behind their banking systems. We won't treat this as a euro area problem. And from that decision, as momentous as the Irish decision to come in behind their banking system first, even before that decision, has set the atmosphere for how things have developed since. If Merkel had said, let's get together and put a euro-wide backing for our banks together, things would now be different. But that's set the scene for what developed subsequently, that individual countries felt like individual countries dealing with this problem, and they have never subsequently got it together. Which brings us on to Martin Wolf, Time for Germany to Make Its Fateful Choice. And it's a good headline. It's a good cartoon, actually. Again, different. It's not Bromley this time. You can see that what the idea is, the people sinking on their little Eurostars. And the one in the top left is kind of thinking about what to do. And that's Germany. Does it go back and try and rescue the ones that are flailing? Anyway, into Martin Wolf. In quotes, perhaps future historians will consider Maastricht a decisive step towards the emergence of a stable European-wide power. Yet there is another, darker possibility. The effort to bind states together may lead, instead, to a huge increase in frictions among them. If so, the event would meet the classical definition of tragedy: hubris, arte, nemesis, arrogance, folly, destruction. Martin Wolf goes on in the article, I wrote the above in the Financial Times almost 20 years ago. My fears are coming true. This crisis has done more than demonstrate that the initial design of the Eurozone was defective, as most intelligent analysts then knew. It has also revealed, and in the process exacerbated, a fundamental lack of trust, let alone sense of shared identity, among the peoples locked together in what has become a marriage of inconvenience. And obviously, you can see that this is close to Martin Wolf's heart, so he writes a very intelligent article which finishes, in the end, Germany must choose between a Eurozone disturbingly different from a larger Germany it expected, or no Eurozone at all. I recognise how much its leaders and people must hate having been forced into a position in which they have to make this choice. But it is the one they confront. Chancellor Merkel must now dare to make that choice clearly and openly. And after that article, there are hundreds of comments, and they're very wise and intelligent comments, most of them. It's good to know that there are so many intelligent people out there. Just the first two comments come in thus. It is highly unfortunate that the ECB, European Central Bank, will be headed by a southerner at this very moment, when it will have to decide to break its rules and bail out the South. Draghi, who's going to take over, he's Italian, is brilliant, but he comes from the wrong country. I think the head should come from the Netherlands or Finland, and it is unfortunate, because at this time where the ECB, left alone in charge of the children, is going to have to break rules and go ahead and buy huge quantities of Italian, Spanish debt, maybe even do some coming in behind the banks when the shit does hit the fan. It's going to be an Italian in charge. It doesn't matter how brilliant he is, but if a German was in charge, or, as this chap says, a Dutch chap or a Finnish chap, the North could accept it better. This often happens that you need the An example, Netanyahu in Israel. If the Palestinians were going to get concessions from an Israeli government, if they got it from the Netanyahu government, the Israelis could accept it because they know that Netanyahu would be the strongest negotiator. And if he gave way, it's the only way it had to be. And this is similar. If an Italian gives way, it's, well, a German wouldn't have given way, or a Dutchman, or a Finnish person. Unfortunate. Moving on. I know you represent the elite, Mr. Woolf, and that's a bit wrong, because he is really very left-wing, Martin Wolf. But the time has come for the politicians to listen to the people of Europe who never wanted to get mixed up in this European nonsense. And that is very true. The most people really thought about it was, oh, well, it'd be nice when we go on holiday, we won't have to change into that funny money. Not really very deep analysis. Lots of wonderful comments, as I could say, but about halfway down I came to this one, which I think draws the line under it. This is the bottom line, as far as I can see. It was always funny to read that everyone is happy with spending German money. Why is that, and why is it so hard to understand that the Germans are less happy with it? Let's look at the situation. The amount of money required to stabilise the Eurozone is quite large. Italy and Spain alone have a far larger population than Germany. That's two of them together. I've got a bigger population than Germany. Yet everybody thinks Germany would be in the position to help them endlessly. It's pretty simple. Germany can't. The country is not able to foot the bill for half the Eurozone. It's as simple as that. Even if it wanted to give away dozens of billions of euros every year, it couldn't. The impression that everything is just great in Germany is plain wrong. Quite the opposite is true. Remember how the country was the sick man of Europe? That was only a few years ago. For the best part of the last decade, the German record on growth and employment has been atrocious. A bit strong, but I mean, public investment was driven down in a way that you can now see serious signs of decline in the public infrastructure. Real wages have been steadily falling, especially for the lowest 50%. Germany now got better employment figures, but don't let yourself get fooled by them. Most of those new jobs are temporary, part-time and lowly paid. At the same time, the number of people that need social assistance in addition to their jobs keep rising. This is not a miracle, and it's not a sign of the strong economy that everyone thinks it is. There's no Fourth Reich that some idiots always has to bring up. There's just no money left to be given away for nothing. And I think that is the bottom line. Merkel can agree that Germany will go in and lead the Netherlands and Finland into an integrated Europe, and then will try and convince their populations to come in behind that idea. But even if they did, the money is not there to back up their political aspirations, even if they did aspire to that. And I think that is fair enough. And I'll finish with this very simple thing that you can pause and work out what they're trying to say with this very simple how Europe sees itself. It's not marvellous, but it's a way to end the week here.